Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome back to the Toby Lodge channel. It's time for our Game Week 8 Fantasy EFL preview. I'm so excited for the week that we've got ahead because of how good some of the fixtures are looking, some of the assets that we can pick. Despite all of the trials and tribulations from Game Week 7, we're powering through. And if you're wondering why my hood's up, all will be explained in a second. So let's get into this. So, Game Week 7. What can I say about you? It was awful. It was horrendous. It was the worst week ever. After some of the worst weeks ever, I didn't think it could get any worse, but so something has to change. We had to do something to turn the tide in our way. The big hair, it wasn't bringing me any power. It wasn't bringing me any luck. So what have we done? What have we changed? How are we going to climb back up the rankings? I've got a mullet, ladies and gentlemen. I've got a mullet, and it's going to get me up through the rankings. This week, we climb into the top 10k, and the week after, we climb into the top 7.5. The week after, 5, 1, and once we're in the top 1k, we get to the top 100. We get to number 1 in the world. Well, I don't think that's possible. I think I'm like over 200 points off first in the world at this point. But we're going to get back up there, and this is the week that things change. We've got a mullet now. It's time. There's no other reason why I can't succeed, you know? So let's move up the rankings, but let's actually talk about Game Week 7 first. To have a quick recap of Game Week 7, here's the team, here's how things panned out, and let's just talk about some of the awful things that happened, as they seem to be happening every week. Cabby has missed a penalty. Cabby misses a penalty every week whenever I put him in my team. Apparently, it's happened 3 times now. Andy got booked as well. So anything that he did well in the game, he might as well have just blanked. You know, it's just awful. It's horrendous. Taylor Allen at the back. I was obviously watching the Wickham game. He's missed 2 massive chances. They didn't go down as big chances, but he's had one at the back post where he's absolutely free from a corner and he's hammered it over the bar. He's had one, the ball's fallen to him about 5 yards out from goal and he couldn't get it out from under his feet when he could have nearly just tapped it in. It was horrendous to see, and obviously lost his clean sheet to Peterborough, who didn't have a win on the board yet in the season. West Brom lost their clean sheet late on to Derby. West Brom had 1.12 expected goals against Derby's 0.34. That's nothing. And Derby's only shot on target of the game won the game. 18 shots to 4. I've got West Brom and Phillips from last week, and you know, they blanked. They've got me nothing in what was, again, a really unlucky game. And all the West Brom fans are saying, how typical is that? The Leicester game, they did lose their clean sheet before they went down to 10 men, but then went down to 10 men against Oxford and got a -1 for that as well. So they were never getting anything out of it. But Stolarczyk, you know, it was written on the wall straight away with him. And then Mehmeti and Morgan, I posted over on X, if you don't follow me already, FEFLTIPS on there before the games and said I'm 50-50. I don't know what to do with Morgan and Mehmeti, but I went for Morgan because he was in the early kickoff. I was debating it all week. I didn't know who to do. And obviously there was a 10-point swing. Mehmeti got 14 points. Everything went wrong, really, that could have gone wrong. Obviously Bristol City got me a few points, but it's just not enough. It was terrible. It was an awful week. And surely things can only get better. I didn't even know my rank could drop this far down. I think I'm going below managers who aren't even active in the game at this point. So it's time to move on up. We pick ourselves up. Let's get into Game Week 8 and let's get some momentum built, because I think there's some fantastic picks for this week. If you haven't subscribed already, please do hit the subscribe button. It means the absolute world to me, seeing the support that we've got. And hit the like button as well. It just helps the videos to be seen by more people who might be interested. And the support from you guys so far has just been unbelievable. Thank you for it all. Now let's get back to the video. So, Mulletman's first bit of analysis. I actually really like it, by the way. I hope that you guys approve. It's a very different look to how we were before. But it was needed. We needed to change something. But the clubs in Game Week 8, I think that there's a few that are really standing out to me. I've got Huddersfield included in here, as always. I feel like I put them in every week, but they just seem to have a good fixture nearly every week. Obviously, last week was pretty tricky, and I thought they might lose that game, to be honest. It didn't surprise me too much. But playing against Burton, I think at home is a great fixture. I think if there's going to be a game where they bounce back and find their form again, a home game against a team who Burton, who are 22nd in the league, I think it's a really strong fixture for them. But maybe you want to save a team like Huddersfield again for one of the doubles. Swindon, Salford obviously third in the league. I think that Swindon themselves are in a bit of a league of their own at the minute. They're not keeping clean sheets, but they're scoring goals. The data suggests that the clean sheets are going to come at some point. I think it's a bit too tough of a fixture to really jump on the Swindon train this week. But if you want to be brave, go for it. A team that, could be likely for an away win, I think Swindon are up there. Bristol City, really like them again. Obviously put in such a solid shift last week, which we spoke about them loads last week. All the assets that we discussed did really well. Obviously, I only went for the team pick, which I'm really regretting now. But smashed it against Sheff Wednesday, and they've got Oxford this week. Gillingham away at Newport, who are struggling a bit. The away, side of this fixture puts me off a little bit, but Gillingham are just flying. Gareth Ainsworth, as we've got on the picture there, he's doing such a good job. That's my guy, Gareth. Just an unbelievable manager, doing such a good job. So I don't really mind that whatsoever. I think they could draw the game. They seem to draw quite a few away, but Gillingham really on what is it, a 20 or 19 game unbeaten run. It's unbelievable. Stevenage, the team that I'm probably feeling the best out of in terms of any team. Exeter away from home, they've only scored one goal all season, and that was obviously away at Wickham, when I had Wickham in my fantasy EFL team actually, and it was an own goal. They didn't even have a shot on target all game, or they might have had one and it was from like a million yards out. It was just the most ridiculous own goal, the most unlucky defeat ever. And that's the only goal they've scored away all season. They've lost every game away other than that. Stevenage have won every home game and kept a clean sheet in every home game. So I think I'm backing Stevenage heavily this week. Obviously, that's probably going to mean if I'm backing them, then everything goes wrong. But I just think that's such a good fixture that the numbers just line up so well. Similarly, really, with Portsmouth against Sheff Wednesday. Sheff Wednesday, they just seem to be the team to target in the Championship, playing against every week. And Portsmouth, who are actually having a really solid start to the season. They're 9th in the table, but 3 clean sheets out of 5 against a team who are struggling as much as Sheffield Wednesday, conceding as many chances as them. I really don't think that it's a bad idea to have a look at Portsmouth as a team. And then Plymouth as well. I think they've got, is it 3 wins in the last 4 or 2 in their last 3, something like that. Plymouth are really starting to look like a better side. Playing against Peterborough, who they beat Wickham, but it didn't impress me too much, to be honest. I think that we sort of beat ourselves on the day, as we seem to nearly every week. I think that Plymouth playing against bottom of the league is a solid shout. Their form is picking up. Obviously, the numbers aren't great, but the numbers are getting better with a team like them. And the signing of Tolaj, I think, has really started to turn them around. So, like Plymouth as well, as a bit of an outside shout, I would probably say Stevenage are definitely my favourite. Portsmouth and Plymouth are similar. Bristol City as well, but there's plenty of options on that board and some real good shouts. And I don't think that Port Vale and Oldham, because of how good their defences have been recently, are too far off them either. Now, defenders, and the more that I talk and think about defenders, the more I'm thinking, should I be looking at 3 at the back this week? It just hasn't done very well for me so far, but equally no formation's done so well for me at the start of this fantasy EFL season. So maybe that shouldn't discourage me from looking at it, because I think there's some good assets. I'm not going to dwell on Jolo too much because I've just spoken about Huddersfield a lot. McCrory, who's got really good attacking threat as well. Both those first 2 picks, they're really popular, but that's for a reason, because they're doing really well. McCrory, I think, has a really high ceiling because of his attacking threat, but he also gets quite a few tackles and stuff like that in there as well. Charlie Good for Stevenage scored last week, or he scored recently, so his average is a bit above Pierre Gianni, and his attacking data is just a bit better, but I don't think there's much in it between those 2 for Stevenage whatsoever. You could easily go for either of them, and I think Pierre Gianni's clearances might be a little bit better than Good, but they're really similar assets, to be honest, and Pierre Gianni scored a lot over the years, so don't mind either of them. I think it's just a bit of a toss-up who you pick. And then Poole from Portsmouth, as I've mentioned, that Sheff Wednesday fixture, just think it's really worth targeting. And definitely considering a Portsmouth defender. If you don't want Poole, you could maybe go for one of the keepers. But I think it's Killip who's playing in net at the minute, because there was an injury last week to Portsmouth's first keeper. But yeah, maybe that might put you off the defence a little bit. I think that I'm maybe looking at a goalkeeper from Portsmouth. Let me know as well if you'd want to see a goalkeeper section added to the videos. I just don't have it in because it's obviously similar to the defenders and it condenses the videos a bit more. Otherwise, we'll be pushing half an hour. But if you'd like me to discuss goalkeepers, I know a couple of people have said about it. I definitely could do that. So let me know below if you would like me to add in a section or just briefly discuss them a bit more than I do. Sonny Bradley, he scored 3 goals in his last 3 games, and he's coming up against his former team in Luton. Luton, who are struggling, there's a bit of negativity about the club at the minute, who I think they're being a bit unfair on Mark Bloomfield, but I'm probably a bit biased towards him. Sonny Bradley, his attacking threat all through his career has been really solid. He's so good at attacking a corner. Back from suspension, he seems to be back with a vengeance. So yeah, really like the Bradley shout, even if the fixture is tricky. And he's pretty solid for clearances as well, and the attacking threat's just insane. His average is 7.4 with a red card in there too, by the way, which is crazy. Manny Month, I think that's how you pronounce it. I've never been a fan of this guy because at Tranmere away a few years ago, I saw Akin Fenwa skin this guy. He knocked it around him and sprinted onto the ball at the end. So I thought this guy can't actually be any good. But Oldham's defensive record recently, I targeted them for weeks on weeks, and I think I need to eat my words because their defensive record has been really solid. Playing against bottom of the league Cheltenham, who have started to score a couple and turn it around a little bit, but you can't say that that's not a favourable fixture for them, even if it's away from home. I think that with how good Oldham's defence has been as of late, don't think that that's the worst shout in the world. Kept a clean sheet in half the games so far. Who's also kept a clean sheet in half the games, Max Clark, who's kept a clean sheet in 3 out of the 6 he's played. He's on penalties for Gillingham, which I just think makes him so tempting, such a good asset. He's one of those left backs, I've said it before, he just fits the mould of an Ainsworth left back, like a, you know, who's he had over the years, Joe Jacobson. He's loving those kind of players in there. At Wickham, we've had those kind of Luke Leahy type characters who I know he didn't play under Gaz, but he's always just loved having those players in there, and I think that Max Clark is just an Ainsworth player who is going to really thrive under him, and he has done so far. He's got a goal and assist this season, got an assist in the cup as well. His XGI data is really good, so I think that Clark could be nailed to go in my team this week, even if he's away from home. Newport, who've blanked a couple times this season too. I've talked about Pierre Gianni. I think that Connor Hall at Port Vale is a really good shout. Hits a great number of clearances too. And even if they're, now been promoted into League One, their defence has still remained pretty solid. And Demetriou as well. I think that he's got a decent fixture this week. He always hits a lot of clearances. I think that the tide will turn for Crewe at some point, so maybe you could be thinking about him too. Okay, we're going a bit retro, getting the retro shirt out for the midfielder section. And no, don't get excited. That doesn't mean that I'm putting a Wickham asset in my team like an idiot again. I'm not doing that. I'm putting us on hold for a couple of weeks. Maybe if we turn things around, then I might start thinking about it. But something dramatically has to change at Wickham before I think I start looking at our assets. I think we've been really unlucky so far, but that luck, if it just keeps going and going, I just can't see myself back in it. Maybe if I don't put somebody in this week, we'll actually get a win. But anyway, onto the midfielders. I digress. I'm going straight into Kayla Dunn, Norwood and Cozy Dewberry. 3 incredibly popular assets. Kayla Dunn, I've spoken out, and said that I'm a fan of him because of the high ceiling quite a few times in the past, but just feels like he could also blank pretty easily in plenty of games. His XGI data is looking really good. Blackpool, who are struggling, and Steve Bruce is under a lot of pressure at the minute. I think I saw an article that he's maybe toying about with changing the goalkeeper situation around, which I don't think usually ends up too well. So I think that Kayla Dunn could be a worthy shout this week. Norwood and Cozy Dewberry, I spoke badly about in the past. And when it comes to Norwood, I think I'm eating my words a little bit because of the interceptions that he's hitting, 14. I think it's the joint most in the whole game. And when he's on penalties as well as that can only mean that he's a solid asset to pick, in my opinion. I think that I've sort of changed my mind on him. I think that his average is going to, very slowly go down. It's not going to stay over 9 for the course of the season. But there's a lot of inflated averages or deflated ones that are going to rise over the season, and it will start to even itself out. Cozy Dewberry, as well, he's got 2 goals in 2 games, which I'm pretty sure are his only 2 professional goals, but the form's been there. He was taking a lot of shots in games, so yeah, maybe we should be looking at him. But the fixture against Wigan it's a big derby for Bolton and Wigan, and I think those games are always really tightly contested. So I would stay away from him this week, but maybe my mind is starting to be changed on ACD, and I'm starting to be converted from being a bit of a hater in the past. But I'm not sure. Maybe I'm just starting to overthink my own decision making, and that I should really stick to my guns, because I had a good year last year. I've got a very good record in FPL. I like to think finishing in the top 100 last year is pretty impressive. So I don't know. Let's see how it goes. I won't be going for ACD, but Norwood I could very well back in my team. Colwell, his data is incredible. The Bradford fixture I think is pretty tough, but I just think that, you know, he's one of those players, especially being at home, he gets so involved for Cardiff that I think he's a really good shout. Mehmeti, his XGI is unbelievable. I think he's got the highest average points out of midfielders that's in the game at the moment. And when he's got 3 goals, 3 assists in 5 games, it's ridiculous. And I think he's on penalties. Not taken one yet this season, I don't think. But with a favourable fixture against Oxford, I think he's a really tasty asset. Just hope that I've not sort of missed the curve with him. And last week he did really well, and that means that this week he won't. We'll see. Hopefully goals in back-to-back games, because I'm really thinking about backing him. Cabia, what can I say about you? The Barnet fixture I think is great. I think it's a great fixture. He's got to lose penalties now. Surely he's got to lose penalties. But when he's suffered as an asset because of that, does he then become a better asset because he's taken off penalties? I'm not sure. If he scored 2 out of the 3 of those penalties, or even all 3 of them, I think he's like a Salah or a Haaland, and he's like a must in everybody's team. I genuinely think so highly of him as an asset playing up front, but it's a couple of different strikers now who could replace him in the team for Grimsby, so maybe it's time that I start to look away from Cabia. I don't think I can go for him this week when he's just punishing me every week at the minute, but obviously if I don't put him in my team, he's going to score this week, so take from that what you will. Obviously what I do with my team doesn't actually affect anything, but it feels like it does at the minute. And then Murphy, real differential shout, playing Sheff Wednesday, who are so weak at the moment. Really don't think that it's too bad of a shout, because I think he got something like 7 goals and 12 assists last season, Murphy, for Portsmouth. So playing against such a weak side, he's not had the output this season so far. I think it's going to start turning at some point. His XGI data is okay. It's not too inspiring, but with a fixture that's as nice as the Sheff Wednesday game, I think it could be a really nice differential. And a quick mention to Ollie Clark, who just seems to be the routes to points. The interceptions have been insane recently, so maybe you want to think about him too. But I think there's enough in there to really pick 2 or 3 solid midfielders for this week. Now for the forward section I love doing. I love it. It's exciting. There's always so many options. This year it just feels like there's tons of players that we could choose between. No less than this week, there's so much to discuss. Quite a bit of a debate going on in my head, but I think there's one player that I'm leaning towards more than anybody else. Dennis, I think this week again, he's a solid shout, as he is every week. I think he blanked. I think it was the first time this season that he's actually blanked. This past week, he might have only got 1 point, something like that. But the Crawley fixture, I think, is solid. The XGI is obviously great. The output has been so good over the season so far. So if you want to go for Dennis, really don't think it's a bad idea whatsoever. Sargent, who I think is probably my favourite out of the players in this list. Wrexham just looked really poor against QPR defensively. I keep a keen eye on QPR now that they've got Kone, they've got Paul Smith, the ex-Wickham boys. I really want a Kone shirt, a QPR shirt. So please, if there's a QPR fan watching this, tell me to buy it down below, and maybe I will go for it. But can't decide on that one. But I just think that their third shirt is just so nice, and I just bloody love Richard Kone, who I think is a decent shout this week, even though Stoke are a really solid opposition. Haji Wright, I think he's got a goal in his last 4 games or something like that. The same with Drinan, actually, for Swindon. So I'll talk about both of those together. Wright, whose XGI numbers are just incredible. They obviously blow Drinan's out the park. But when you're in such good form like these two are, even though they've got away fixtures that are really tricky, do you really want to look past them? I don't know. I think that with Wright, 0.96 XGI per night is insane. So even though he's playing Leicester, maybe it could still be a good shout. Udo, who's just been on fire since he joined Salford. I miss him at Wickham dearly, but 2 goals and 2 assists in League 2. A striker who I think is way too good to be down there. Swindon, their defensive data is solid, but they've only kept 1 clean sheet so far this season. So maybe Udo's a bit of an outside shout. I had him in my past and present last week, and he did wonders for me. I think it was 15 points that he might have got. Tolaj, playing against bottom of the league. the last 3 games, I think he's got a goal contribution in. So he's really turned his season around since he joined Plymouth. He's a great player, and he's playing against a really weak defence. So even though the XGI isn't amazing for him, I do think that it's a really solid shout. And then Bishop playing against Sheff Wednesday, similarly playing against the bottom team in his division. His XGI date is actually, quite a bit more impressive than Tolaj's, but he's not got the numbers so far to reflect it. What better game to turn it around than against Sheffield Wednesday? I just think that's a really solid fixture. And then an honourable mention to Cole as well, who since signing for, is it Port Vale that he's at? He's just done unbelievably well. I think he's got 2 goals in 2 games so far, and maybe an assist as well. And then Amari Patrick, with the numbers he's been putting up, I think he got quite a few shots on target this week, even though he blanked. Definitely worth thinking about. So the forwards, the debate is there. There's quite a few options. I'm leaning towards Sargent right now, but I won't give too much away because it's time to talk about my team selection. Here we go then. Here's how I'm looking this week. But as you can tell by my watch list, which has become extremely extensive, I've got 6 different assets on there. I'm really undecided by the team. If Portsmouth's goalkeeper hadn't been injured, then I would really be certain at backing one of their defensive players, but that just makes me think maybe is something going to go wrong there. I don't know. I'm also really debating doubling up and putting Marshall in there instead of Killip, so can't decide there. I don't really know what the situation is with the injury at Portsmouth, so if there's anybody who knows, maybe let us know down below to try and help us out. But equally, we can just have a look at team news come the time this weekend. Max Clark, who defensively really sound, but also attacking threat is unbelievable. Good, I think, is a solid shout, and I'm going to have either Good or Pierre Gianni in there. It's just a toss-up between the two, and I think Good's attacking threat makes me lean towards him, but equally Pierre Gianni could score, and it wouldn't surprise me. Norwood and Kayla Dunn, it's so basic, but Norwood's doing wonders for everybody else other than me, so maybe I've got to put him in, and then he's going to stop scoring finally. Stop scoring points, but no, obviously I hope that he does well for my team if I put him in. Kayla Dunn, whose numbers are just unbelievable. I really like him this week. I think that Blackpool are struggling, even though it's away. I just think that, it wouldn't surprise me to see him score. Mehmeti doing so well. I could swap him out for Colwill or one of the midfield for Colwill. Not really decided. Equally 3 at the back, I think, would be a good shout with a Poole or a Hall in it. And then Sargent up front, I'm pretty set on. But Bishop and Tolaj both are worthy shouts. So if something was to go wrong, I could actually see myself going 2-2-2, which I usually hate, but I could see myself doing it. And then I've definitely got Stevenage in as a team pick. I've got Plymouth in at the moment. I'm sort of tempted to go for Portsmouth instead. Can't decide. I think that something will change with this team. At least 1 or 2 assets will probably swap out by this weekend. I'd be surprised if it looks like that come the deadline, but let's see how it goes, and hopefully we can have a big week and finally move up the rankings this week. Okay, so that wraps up my Game Week 8 preview. I hope that all the information in there has helped you out and maybe told you the plays to avoid, the ones who I've got in my team, because everything seems to be going wrong for me so far. If you haven't joined our league, please do join it. It's FEFLTIPS, which is also my X handle. I'll be posting on there over the weekend. I'm always doing it. I'll be posting my demise, I'm sure. We'll see how far I can drop from 13k. No, the mullet's here. We're going to move up the rankings. Let's get back in the top 10k this week. Let's have a big week. Any green arrow, I'll be happy. Well, would I be happy with any? I want a big green arrow this week, to be honest. But just any decent week, beating the average, beating, better than what I've been doing so far would be great. I'm quite confident in the team. I think that I'm not going for any stupid biased assets. I'm just going for some really solid picks. I really want to load up on Stevenage's defence, but I just don't know if it's too risky. I don't know. We'll see how I end up, but I will post my final team over on Twitter as well, so keep an eye out on that. I hope all the information has helped you all out, and there's tons of you who are watching who are absolutely smashing it in the rankings, so big up to you. Good luck to everybody for the week. I'm so excited to see how it pans out. Let's see if the new haircut can propel us further up the rankings than we are so far. So yeah, fingers crossed for a good week. Good luck to everybody at home, and thanks so much for watching. If you could subscribe, it means the absolute world to me and helps me out so much, and drop a like on the video too if you've made it this far. You're an absolute legend. See you again next week. Good luck this weekend. Peace, guys.